I wonder how many of you in this audience have ever bought a designer item and immediately regretted it after. You're scrolling online and you find a bag or a pair of shoes that catch your eye, and without thinking twice, you rush in and you buy them, despite the fact that they cost more than your monthly rent, and truth be told, they're not the most comfortable. But why? Why do we feel the need to buy these extravagant purchases and consume these luxury brands? One of the main reasons that we feel the need to buy these luxury items is to compete against others. This originally stems from our ancestors. In early human history, our ability to survive depended on our ability to compete for resources like food and shelter. If you're better able to do this, then you are more likely to survive and pass on your genes to your offspring. In a more modern context, this competitiveness manifests in many ways, but in this talk, I'd like to focus on the consumption of luxury goods. For example, in men, researchers have found that they tend to buy more expensive items when they're in the presence of someone that they perceive as more physically dominant. This is more prevalently seen in men who are shorter or who have a lower hand-point ratio, which is when the distance between their ring finger and their index finger is smaller. In comparison, men who are taller or who have a larger distance between their ring finger and their index finger tend to avoid doing this, and because having those features is a symbol of dominance. And so the people who don't exhibit these traits feel the need to compensate for them, in this case through buying luxury items. For women, on the other hand, researchers have found that even just the presence of somebody else in the same area can increase their attraction to luxury goods. This all links back to the idea that there's an innate need to stand out and to be noticed because it's hardwired into our survival to do this. There are thousands of more beneficial things that we could buy, but in the end, it's a lot easier to prioritize style over actual value. Another reason we tend to buy luxury goods is because of the social status that they carry. Owning a designer item, especially in a social circle, can help you gain a lot of admiration and respect from others because they're a symbol of wealth and success. We can see this a lot more often in areas with high economic inequality, when there's a large gap between the rich and the poor, because people tend to buy more luxury items to show their status. They also tend to buy items which are quote-unquote loud, which have really big and obvious brand logos on them. In comparison, in areas with low economic inequality, people tend to buy items that are quote-unquote quiet, because they don't want to appear as trying too hard to fit in with the mainstream. As well as this, even the physical act of buying luxury items can give you a dopamine rush and activate the reward center in your brain. In one study investigating this, researchers found that even just the physical act of touching a luxury item, despite not knowing that it was one, increased emotional satisfaction just based on the tactile sensation. In a more economic sense, these luxury goods can be classified as Veblen goods. This means that as the price increases, so does the demand for them. This is because a lot of the times we tend to subconsciously associate higher prices with higher quality, and this kind of acts as a way of justifying buying them to ourselves. As well as this, a lot of the time when people become loyal to a brand, they'll buy it no matter the price, and they become price insensitive. Take the example of Apple. I'm sure the majority of you in this room own an Apple iPhone. And each year, they release a new one claiming to be a new and improved version of the last, with a better camera or better battery. And yet, as an iPhone user myself, I found that my iCloud storage is constantly running out, and my battery loses 50% over the span of a couple hours. And yet, the lengths that people can go to them to buy them, camping outside for days just to be the first people to try the new product out. In a similar way, a lot of the times companies use different advertising tricks to compel you to buy these products. Two of the most commonly seen ones are the decoy effect and the anchoring effect, which I'm sure most of us have been victim to. The decoy effect, for example, you've probably seen at the cinema. In this case, there are 3 boxes of popcorn. The first being small, costing $3.50, the second medium, costing $6, and the final one being large and costing $6.50. It would seem obvious to opt for the larger popcorn because there's such a small difference between the medium and the large in terms of price. And so we are sort of exploited in this way and kind of forced to buy these items. If you're in the mood for a little bit of shopping later and you decide to go to a store, people tend to be subjected to the anchoring bias, to the anchoring effect. For example, if you walk into a store and you see a $10,000 bag, it's really expensive, but it's really beautiful. But because of the price, you're probably not going to buy it. But if you walk down and a couple aisles later, you find the same bag on discount for $2,000, You're going to feel the need to buy it because it looks like such a big discount, like a bargain, and you just need to get it, even though it's still really expensive. But what is this actually doing to us? Why is buying these luxury items doing more harm than good? One of the main reasons is that buying these luxury items can lead to us depending on them for happiness. When you first buy a designer item, you get that feeling of joy and emotional satisfaction, but over time, this decreases. And so sometimes we feel the need to fill this gap through buying more and more and more, and it just creates a cycle of continuous consumption. A lot of times as well, it can make people seem, buying these items or not even having access to these items can make people feel unworthy or undeserving because they're seen as something that's only reserved for the elite. Take the example of the Flaunt Your Wealth Challenge, which originated in China, which showcases people falling out of luxury cars surrounded by luxury goods. It seems like such a simple challenge, so harmless. It can really impact how people feel about themselves. In a similar way, again, like this, it can also foster a society where we see people only buy the items that they buy. This is a really toxic and wrong way of looking at things, because we as a community should value people based on their character and what they bring to the table, rather than what they buy. I'm not asking you to stop buying luxury goods completely. Rather, consider whether your money could be better used elsewhere and before you buy them. Because in the end, when we're gone, we're going to be seen or remembered by our character rather than an inheritance of material possessions. Thank you.